All right. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is David Patrick Harry with Church of the Eternal Logos, and today I want to talk to you guys about ritual initiation, the tribal and religious significance of masks. So today we're going to be getting into what exactly is a initiation rite, how are masks used in a ritualistic context, and we have so many things to get into. We're going to begin, before we even do our little housekeeping, diving in right here to the Encyclopedia of World Religions. You normally see this book posted right here. Yes, I do actually read these books. And then we're going to read a few sections out of the Mask of God, Primitive Mythology by the very infamous Jungian archetypal, symbolic, perennialistic scholar Joseph Campbell. But then we're going to be getting into, I have some more detailed articles that we're going to be discussing the Orthodox theology of the face. And that's going to really give us an insight of what the significance of our sort of theology of personhood and the importance of one's face really is, and how that's going to, again, kind of set off today's stream of where we would stand as an Orthodox Christian man or woman, and how we understand the significance and importance of the face, and how this even relates to our iconography, how we are face-to-face through these venerative windows known as icons, these venerative windows, that we are face-to-face with the Holy Mother, with the guardian angels, our saints, and of course our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. And so from there, then I want to get into masks. And obviously we're going to be talking literally about tribal and ritualistic understandings of masks and how they are understood, how masks are usually associated with some type of deity, how they are used in a transformative and a transmutational way to assist in somebody's identity being from point A and transmuting it into a new identity in point B. And of course, obviously, the undertone of this entire stream is the mask that we're seeing in the world right now. Obviously, I want to be a little bit subtle in how I was going to talk about these things. I don't want to be accused of medical malpractice, misinformation, disinfo, fake news. So we're going to be talking very academically about the tribal setting, the use of mask, initiation rites. And throughout today's conversation, just keep in mind, how would this associate with the current happenings in the world? And I think if we're paying attention, by the time we get to the end of this stream, it's going to be pretty surprising, jarring at times, insightful of how these things actually connect. There is more connections than I think most people would probably realize. And again, we have a variety of different articles that we're going to be reading from. Like I said, we have one article on Orthodox theology and the theology of the face. I have one very nice one on the significance of mask and ritual and spirituality. This is a very insightful article that we will be looking at. I have the Britannica, the Encyclopedia Britannica, has a very nice discussion on mask wearing throughout world religions, much larger than the quick little section I'm going to read to you guys in just a moment. And then we're going to be reading from encyclopedia.com, what are initiation rites? And then I hope to leave you with how we may be, as the thesis of today's video is, in the midst of a transformative ritual at scale. And so just to get a piece and an idea of what we're doing here, what does the Merriam-Webster's Encyclopedia of World Religions, what does it say about masks? It doesn't have a very large article section, actually. It's very small. But what it says is masks, a type of disguise, commonly an object worn over the front of the face to hide the identity of the wearer. Okay. The features of the mask not only conceal those of the wearer, but also project the image of another personality or being. This dual function is a basic characteristic of masks. Cultures have made and used masks imbued with symbolism and ascribed spiritual power since the Stone Age. So masks, often within any type of ritualistic setting, has spiritual power and significance. And so once we do a little housekeeping, I'm going to pose the question, what exactly is the spirit of the mask? The surgical mask, the cloth mask that we are now being inundated with in the current times. What is the spirit? What is it being related to? And then we'll carry this through a more academic discussion of masks in tribal and religious settings. But since the Stone Age, the greatest range of mask forms and functions occurs in Africa and in Oceania. Since the end of the 19th century, masks have been exhibited and collected as art objects in their own right and as cultural artifacts. In indigenous societies, masks are frequently associated with the ritual of secret societies or with the high priest or the medicine man. Interesting. Totemic practices, this is the theory of the totem. This actually comes from the scholar Emil Durkheim. If you aren't familiar with him, Emil Durkheim, The Elementary Forms of Religious Life, actually lays out, he's considered to be the father of sociology, he lays out this whole totemic sociological theory, of which, again, the encyclopedia is referring to here, so I'm just trying to connect some dots if you aren't aware. Totemic practices, totemic practices, what the totem is he argues that tribes find a totemic symbol, so the totem pole, right? There's a pole inside a tribal group, and the group circumambulates around that pole, and it becomes the central pillar, the central axis, the world tree of that tribal identity. Often it's related to an animal or some type of deity. Totemic practices whereby a natural object such as an animal or bird is adopted as the emblem of a family line has led to the evolution of totem masks such as those of the Native Americans or the northwestern coast of the United States and some of African cultures. Funerary masks and death masks in ancient Egypt were associated with the return of the spirit to the body. Such masks were generalized portraits and in the case of nobility were made of precious metals. Gold death masks also occur in Asia and in the Inca civilization. For Roman times onward, death masks were sometimes kept as portraits of the dead person, masked as theatrical devices to represent characters evolved from religious tradition in ancient Greek civilization. So, as we'll see here, when we dive into this stuff a little bit more, masks are essential to representing the new transformative identity of the wearer. And so the reason why you obfuscate the face, the personal identity of the wearer, to then transmute them into new identity, what exactly are we being transmuted to? Obviously, you guys are already picking up on the subtleties here, and that this is a global initiation process to the New World Order, to the global reset. And the only way to fully establish this and get people to go along with it so readily is to use essentially ritualistic magical practices. And I suspect, now I'm not giving any medical advice here, YouTube, or anybody else, so don't take me as your doctor, but I suspect that the surgical masks, which we know don't stop the transmission of these very, very fine and small particles that are used, that transmit the virus known as COVID, that the utility of these masks seem to be insignificant. They don't really do much. Now, maybe your saliva, this or that, okay. So then why the insistence on them? Why the capitulation to our irrational activity? I, again, suspect this is part of the new identity that you submit. And we're going to get to this here in a second. But before we even do the housekeeping, I want to, these little orange tabs here, I just want to read a few things, right? The few things. So this is Joseph Campbell and his book, The Mask of God, Primitive Mythology. And these are just generalistic discussions on masks, okay? Some of it is very, very interesting. For example, when he gets to the mask regarding some of the Native American traditions and the practice of cannibalism and pederasty, otherwise known as pedophilia, that the wearers of the mask, the proponents of the mask, often engaged in some of these activities. Now, again, does it relate? I don't know. We're going to be looking at a very expansive discussion of masks today. So everything I say, I'm not trying to say it directly relates to what's going on in the world, but we're going to, if you listen to this stream from beginning to end, you're going to have a good idea of how masks were used in world religion in tribal settings. From there, you make your own deductions of how it may or may not relate to the current state of the world. So he opens the book called The Lesson of the Mask. And so we're not going to go too deep into it, but he gives a quick little paragraph definition of what the mask is. And he says, moreover, the mask in a primitive festival is revered and experienced as a veritable apparition of the mythical being that it represents. What does the mask that people are wearing now represent? And who is that being? Even though everyone knows that a man made the mask and that a man is wearing it. The one wearing it, furthermore, is identified with the god during the time of the ritual of which the mark is a part. So the mask can be a mark of a deity of which the person embodies when they wear it. Interesting. How he does not merely represent the god, no, he is the god. The literal fact that the apparition is composed of A, a mask, B, its reference to a mythical being, and C, a man, is dismissed from the mind, and the presentation is allowed to work without correction upon the sentiments of both the beholder and the actor. In other words, there has been a shift of view from the logic of the normal secular sphere, where things are understood to be distinct from one another. There is a theatrical or play sphere, where they are accepted for what they are experienced as being, and the logic is that of make-believe, as if. Now, he goes on. Again, we're skipping large swaths of this book, so some of this stuff is out of context, but again, we're just focusing on masks here. We're just focusing on masks. And he's talking about the agrarian tribal traditions and how they use masks to perform rituals, fertility rituals, rain dance rituals, various rituals for their crops, for their agriculture. And so I'm going to read this entire paragraph, and there's a few things that I think are very interesting. And one of it is how the masks used in these agrarian societies, the point is to obfuscate any concept of individuality, because as the tribal group and as the tribal ritual is performed, that everybody is taking on the identity of the collective, and I would say that's part of what we're seeing in the world now. So among the planting tribes, the Hopi, the Zuni, and the Pueblo dwellers, life is organized around the rich and complex ceremonies of their masked gods. These are an elaborate rite in which the whole community participates, scheduled according to a religious calendar and conducted by societies of trained priests. As Ruth Benedict observed in her Patterns of Culture, quote, no field of activity competes with ritual for foremost place in their attention. Probably most grown men among the Western Pueblos give it to the greater part of their waking life. It requires the memorizing of an amount of perfect word rituals that our less trained minds find staggering. And the performance of neatly dovetailed ceremonies that are charted by the calendar and completely interlock all the different cults and the governing body in an endless formal procedure. In such a society, there is little room for individual play. There is a rigid relationship not only of the individual to his fellows, but also of village life to the calendric cycle. For the planters are intensely aware of their dependency upon the gods of the elements. One short period of too much or too little rain at the critical moment, and the whole year of labor results in famine. Whereas for the hunter's luck is a very different thing. And so when I first read this, I thought, very, very interesting. That, again, let's read her quote. This is Ruth Benedict's observation in her book, Patterns of Culture. describing agrarian agricultural tribes and their use and their rituals related to their masked gods. No field of activity competes with ritual for foremost. Okay, so why the agrarian is interesting here? Because again, I think if anybody's paying attention, we can see the uptick in the global climate change rhetoric and how this is a fundamental presupposition of the New World religion. Obviously, it is a worship of creation. Obviously, it is a worship of the state to some degree. And therefore, to get people to worship the state, they first worship the earth itself. And so, would then these agrarian rituals be efficacious on the minds of the people who exist now? I suspect they might be. So let's read her quote real quick. No field of activity competes with ritual for foremost place in their attention. So the ritual is the most important thing. Probably most grown men among the Western Pueblos give it to the greater part of their waking life. It requires the memorizing of an amount of word-perfect ritual that our less trained minds find staggering, and the performance of neatly dovetailed ceremonies that are charted by the calendar and completely interlock all the different cults in the governing body in endless formal procedure. When we look at the rhetoric that is happening in the mainstream media, of course, through the social media, through the Silicon Valley tech giants, it is if there is a linguistic ritual at play as well with all this stuff. So I thought that was something that was worth noting for sure. And then we have here just a snippet from a paragraph. And we have seen also the manner of the masked gods of the planters. Again, another reference to the agrarian cults and tribes, binding everything into the compass of their own hieratically organized world society. Offering. So again, you see how this is from the understanding of a world society, even at the tribal setting, offering the power of the group as a principle finally and absolute superior to any of those ceremonies of their own, which the shamans had derived from the various sources of their own experience. So the ultimate agricultural ritual of these masked gods dominates and overshadows any individual ritual. And so the last, I'm going to read a full paragraph here that I think is very interesting, that again talks about these rituals and how ritual cannibalism and pederasty are commonly practiced. Again, does that relate to the current situation of the world? Does that relate to the elite who seem to rule and dominate us? Could be. But check this paragraph out. The men in societies of the third type, wherein within one jot being completely superfluous, and if, as some authorities claim, they can have no knowledge of the relationship of the sexual act of pregnancy and birth, we may well imagine the utter abyss of their inferiority complex. So we're talking about ritualistic practices that are not dealing with fertility in the traditional sense, meaning a pregnant woman or anything like that. Small wonder, furthermore, if in reaction their revengeful imaginations ran amok and developed secret lodges and societies. Men developing secret lodges and societies. Interesting. The mysteries and terrors of which were directed primarily against the women. Interesting. According to the view of Father Schmidt, the ceremonials of the secret lodges are to be distinguished radically from those of the hunting tribe initiations. Their psychological function being different and their history different too. Admission to them is through election and is generally limited. They are not for all. They're only for a special elite. Moreover, they tend to be propagandistic, reaching beyond the local tribe and in fact seeking friends and members among alien peoples, different tribes, and thus bringing it about that, for example, in both West Africa and Melanesia, the chapters of certain lodges are to be found dispersed among greatly differing tribes. As already noted, a particular stress is given in these secret men's societies to a skull cult that is often associated with the headhunt. Ritual cannibalism and pederasty are commonly practiced, and there is a highly elaborated use made of symbolic drums and masks. Ironically, yet by no means illogically, the most prominent divinities of these lodges are frequently female, even the supreme being itself being imagined as a great mother, and in the mythology, the ritual lore of this goddess is a lunar imagery, as we have also already seen. So very, very interesting stuff there. Very, very interesting stuff. Now, we have more where all this stuff came from. So we'll be diving into more of these things. But first, let's take care of a little bit of housekeeping. First housekeeping is shout out to B-Dibe and Keenan. You heard a couple of their music productions in today's opening intro. Major shout out to B-Dibe. He makes great content. He's also, I've got a new song from his on love and spending a lifetime with is the name of that song. That has graphics, but I did not play it in today's video. I didn't think it went entirely well with the theme, but shout out to B-Dive and thank you for all the music that he does. Great artist, great gentleman. God bless you and yours. Also, I want to say, guys, if you have not, we have the Logos Book Club. Logos Book Club will be reading the life of St. Maximus the Confessor. That starts August 17th. That is on August 17th. If you would like to join the Logos Book Club and read the life of St. Maximus the Confessor with fellow brothers and sisters, you can sign up there. $5 admission, and you can download the file, the PDF of the life of St. Maximus the Confessor, and then we're going to get together on the night of August 17th at 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time and read it together. Should be a lot of fun. I know the first one was when we did the first apology from St. Justin Martyr. Also, guys, if you would be interested in watching the Montanica speech that I gave a week ago up in Helena, Montana with fellow Ortho Bros Jay Dyer, Father Deacon Dr. Ananias, and Brother Augustine, that speech is available for website members. You can click the link there, register for $5 a month. I would greatly appreciate it. And you can have access to an entire video library. That video library gives you access to my trad speech forum, my Montanica speech, tons of other videos, and I'm always uploading more and more videos. So if you would just like to support the channel, just donating $5 a month through the website membership is a great way to do that. $5 a month is all I ask, and in return I give you the value of an ever-growing video library. Hopefully that is enticing to you, and again, a great way to support. If some of you would be interested in signing up for a one-on-one session, we have some openings still open for this Thursday. If you would like to sign up for a one-on-one session, you want to talk about theology, philosophy, world religions, goal setting, fitness, I don't care. You can do so with the link that I just posted. Again, we have a few more openings still left for this Thursday. So if you're available this Thursday, we can do a one-on-one session. We have slots still open there. And I think that actually takes care of our housekeeping. Also, guys, tomorrow night we'll be doing our theology course with my godfather, Subdeacon Mark. I post that Zoom link over on my Telegram page. So follow my main Telegram page, and also follow my Telegram group chat, where you will have access to join our theology course every Thursday night, entirely free, entirely an educational event, and we get deep into Orthodox theology. So that's something you'd be interested in. Please join using the link tree, and you'll have access, or you'll have links then to my Telegram channel, my Telegram group chat. So, all right. Now, with that being said, let's just get into the topic at hand today. First thing that I want to say is, before we read the article on the theology of the face within Orthodox theology, before we get into the use of Mass in ritual practices, before we get into what is a initiation rite, I first pose the question to myself: what is the spirit of the mask? And what I mean is the surgical mask that most people are wearing in society today. I saw Allison, a good Orthodox sister here in the community, talk about it as the Babylonian garb. And I thought that was great rhetoric and hilarious and true all at the same time. And so what does the spirit of the mask signify? As we will see, all masks within a ritualistic context signify something that transcends themselves, usually transcends the group as a whole. And the first thing, obviously, you guys would pick up, the first thing that the mask signifies is sickness, right? We're talking about surgical masks here. We're talking about cloth masks, surgical masks. What are they used for? They're face diapers so doctors don't contaminate surgical sites. Never in history were we using surgical masks as filtration devices for viruses that are airborne. That's never been the case, but of course now we're doing irrational activity such as that. So the sickness, the first thing that these masks signify is sickness, and it signifies what? The wearer is sick in some way. And sickness obviously is a movement towards death itself, and once we think about that in a theological context as Orthodox Christians, we can imagine who might be the perpetrator and the larger symbolic force behind the sickness of these masks. It signifies toxic and infected people wear these masks in the hospital so they don't transmit globulin, their own saliva and stuff like this. But I'd say also what these masks symbolize is submission. Submission. If we understand them to be ineffective for the main reason that we're told to wear them, why else would we be wearing them? And I say ultimately it's for a signification of submission. They signify a spirit of submission. And therefore, when you don't submit wearing your mask, people get very upset who do submit to the wearing of the mask. And so it's about taking orders from centralized forces, the CDC, the Center of Disease Control, the Central Center of Disease Control, the World Health Organization, the central government, whatever government is, the UN, all these, the CCP. And that's another interesting thing is when you look at like the Britannica Encyclopedia article is who makes the mask, that every tribe has a mask maker. Well, interestingly, most of the masks that you and I are buying are all made in China, which is also theoretically, sorry YouTube, theoretically the origin point of the Kufid itself. And so they make the mask of which they also made the virus. Interesting. The spirit of the mask also signifies that people are infectious themselves, that people are the virus, that the pandemic, ultimately, when you start to understand the theological presuppositions of climate change and how we're going to combat global climate change induced by human activity, therefore you and I are the virus itself. You and I are the things that need to be exterminated. You and I are the things that need to be bound and under control so that, again, the one world religion, that Mother Nature, the Mother Goddess, can move on in a healthier way, right? That we're the ones that are infecting her. And so the climate change propaganda, I don't know if you guys have seen in some of the recent articles, has really, really ramped up. It's really ramped up. So you look at any mainstream article and all of a sudden everything's about the climate change, red alert, we don't have time anymore, we have to change society right now. Why? Maybe they're all tied together. So personal separation is another one that these masks signify. Personal separation. The way that we commune with somebody else is through their facial emotions. That's how we understand who they are. That's how they see who we are. That's how we show emotion. And so when we cover all these things up, we're actually separating ourselves at an emotional level from other people. And so it also signifies that, like I said, they're sick, they're infectious, and you want to stay away from them. You want to stay away from them. And so this gets into a deeper discussion of the depersonalization, and this is really the theological point of why no Orthodox church should be advocating for anybody to be forced to wear a mask inside the liturgical service. So what you're telling me is that I'm made in the image of God. What you're telling me is that I'm in the presence of the body and blood of God. That in a mystery, through the act of the Holy Spirit, is in fact the body and blood of God. But I have to cover myself with a nonsensical cloth that somehow we pretend is efficacious in stopping a virus that's airborne. So we have to submit to illogical activity, and then I have to cover my personhood, of which I'm made in the image of God, of which is how we commune through these generative windows through icons. Is that what you're saying? Any liturgical service that is demanding you to wear a mask is directly in violation of our personhood theology. And so we see then, if this is ultimately coming from the evil one, this is ultimately a depersonalization, because it's about taking the image of God out of you. And that's why I would say this gene therapy, the technology behind these vaccines, is the first step towards the transhumanist project, which is ultimately about making sure your DNA is no longer entirely God-made, but now the image of fallen man, the image of the evil one, how has access to your genetic strand. So depersonalization, taking away the image of God in you and others. Another aspect of the spirit of the mask is collectivism over uniqueness. You and I, with our unique expressions and faces, are unrepeatable. You have a face, I have a face, and they aren't the same face. There's a uniqueness to each person's face. When we begin to cover ourselves up with these cloth masks, we see then we start to lose, same thing with the personalism, the personalhood. We lose our uniqueness in favor of a collective identity, which if we're moving towards a one-world government, if we're moving towards a centralized structure, a centralized bureaucracy that controls the entire world, then we are moving towards collectivism over personhood. This is why you don't have a choice over your body anymore. This is why you don't have a choice whether you want to wear the mask inside store A, store B anymore. It's not your choice. You don't get a choice, because free will is made in the image of God, and we aren't going to allow you to have free will. That's not part of the agenda. You will submit by force or death eventually to submit to the new world order. And so we see then another spirit of these masks is collectivism over uniqueness, getting people to value collectivism over uniqueness. You have to do it to, it's not for me, it's for you. I'm protecting you. I'm protecting you from the virus. I have to wear a mask. At what point in history was this the basis of ethics and morality? And see that then people are adopting through these masks a new ethical system, that I submit to the centralized, depersoned, maskless, faceless, centralized bureaucracy. And in so doing that, now I'm a moral person. I'm an ethical person, and I'm doing it for you because I care about you, because I'm more ethical than you, and because you won't get the stabbing, and because you won't wear your mask, I think you need to be locked up in a FEMA camp, of which, I don't know if you guys saw, FEMA is doing a test run tomorrow, so all of us will be getting FEMA alerts on our cell phones. If you have a smartphone, FYI, you'll be getting a FEMA alert on your phone tomorrow. So what else? Masks of shame. Masks of shame. I have an article that, I'm going to show you guys here in a few, of the masks of shame. This isn't a joke. Here, we'll just do it right now. That within culture itself, we've seen masks of shame in ancient times. What are masks of shame? Well, this article that I found just was referring to gossip during the medieval and the Renaissance times. But the basis is that masks were used to shame people. To shame people. Are we going through a mass shaming ritual? Is the depersonalization, is the bowing down to illogical activity that we know isn't true, that doesn't stop a virus that's airborne, that the particles are, thousands of times smaller than the fibers in the mask? Is this really part of a larger initiation ritual, a shaming ritual, a mask of shame? Well, it very well could be. And so you see, like this one right here with the nose of a pig is to signify that the person is a pig. So the masks of shame always signified what the person was. If the person was evil or mean, well, then you'd give them a sort of demonic mask in regards to a mask of shame. Well, our masks of shame are showing that we're sick. All of us are sick. All of us are a sickness in one way or another. And so, and related to this, we also see, here's a little thing that I found. They know Corona is a hoax. Now, I do think there's a virus. I'm not one of the people who say there is no virus out there. I do believe that there's a virus. I got a small little flu thing where, again, I lost my smell and my taste. Was that Corona? Most likely. And I think that they probably manufactured a man-made virus that had specific attributes when dealt with that contagion to identify whether it is. And now we see the stabbies are really the catalyst for perpetuating the various variants, but I'm not going to go there. There's a reason to believe they may only want compliance. Of course, that's what it is. They know the masks are not forced to wear, that we're forced to wear, do not work. So the question is why? Why are they mandating this? Let's take a look at history. Corona mask in 95. Cloth mask. The cloth mask doesn't do it. At least in N95 is actually efficacious. And then we have punishment mask. Interesting. Very interesting. Wow. They look a little similar, don't they? Slave masks. Interesting. Very interesting. And so, as the bottom says, for the communists or for the globalists, I guess those terms are synonymous at this point, compliance is everything. We are obviously being trained, and that is certainly the case. We are being trained at one level, and that's why this is an initiation ritual. And that's why they take back, they'll open it up, and then they'll lock it back down again. They'll take it back, and they'll lock it back down. Because this is a Pavlovian conditioning to get people to accept what is coming. The only way it stops is when we stop acquiescing. And so what else does the spirit of the mask signify? Tribal allegiance. Tribal allegiance. Now the mask is not just about the depersonaling. It's not just about the sickness presupposition every time you interact with somebody. Well, also what's going on here is it signifies tribal allegiance. Now, if you go somewhere and you're not wearing a mask, oh my gosh, you must be one of those conspiracy theorists for the degenerate left. You must be a Trump supporter. Even though, again, Trump has Trump even criticized the mandating of the stabbies? Of course not. Of course not, because as Anomaly says, and I agree, Grandpa Moderna, he's a vaccine salesman. He was false opposition. It took him, it wasn't until last month he even mentioned the name of Ashley Babbitt? Come on. Anybody who's still promoting Trump, I feel sorry for you. Yes, he's a better alternative to Dementia Joe, of course, but he's false opposition. The dude is really just another globalist. I mean, who printed the $2 trillion? Who did Operation Warp Speed? Who is totally silent on the mandating of these stabbies? Seems to be like a particular person is behind those things. So now tribal allegiance. You don't wear your face diaper, and all of a sudden, you've been identified. What tribe do you belong to? You wear your diaper. You get your stabby, and you're a good global citizen, right? You listen to the CDC. You believe in the World Health Organization. All the institutional forms of power have your best interests at hand, don't they? Well, that's what we're told. Obviously the Rockefeller Foundation, the Clinton Global Initiative. We know who is pulling some of these strings, and it's not that any one of them are ultimately in power. Ultimately, again, we're Orthodox Christians here. We know we go to the top of the pyramid. We go to the eye of the pyramid, and that's ultimately the evil one. And so that is the tribal allegiance that I think ultimately it is at one level or another. The only way you wouldn't wear it is if you have some sort of embodiment of truth. And we know that truth is a who, not a what. And therefore, if you're ultimately pursuing truth, you're ultimately moving towards Christ. And I think if you're moving in that direction, you're not going to be a subservient slave wearing your face diaper. You're not going to be a subservient slave wearing your face diaper. And so tribal allegiance is another part of the spirit of this mask. Also, the loss of liberty for public health. Again, this new ethic. As we just read here in Joseph Campbell, these agrarian masked gods, the agrarian tribes that did rituals with masked gods, what did he mention? That the masked rituals were important for the mask wearers to lose their sense of individuality and what we would say their personhood in terms of the collective. That the whole group had to take on the single identity of the collective. And that's the point, because we're moving towards the global reset. This is about a one-world reset. This is about a one-world identity. This is about losing the image of God in you. You are now a number. You are now a number. And so the loss of liberty for public health, personal decisions no longer exist. mandate everything. Your personal liberties are not important. You do not get free will. Your free will is made in the image of God, and we are taking that away from you. And then the last thing, obviously, what all this stuff leads to is that the spirit of the mask is signifying a subservient servant of the beast system. Oh, you want to get on the airplanes, of which I recently had to do, going to LA and Montana. You want to get on our planes? Well, put on your mask. You want to go into our hospitals? Then put on your mask. You want to go inside a government building? Then put on your masks. Put on your new identity. Put on the identity of the global reset. Put on your Babylonian garb, as Allison astutely said. This is really and ultimately, as I'm sure many of you have already connected, this is really and ultimately about being subservient to the beast system. Now, are we in the end times? I don't know. Does it look like we're moving pretty close, pretty fast? Yeah, it does. But I, as an Orthodox Christian, reserve judgment until the Orthodox Church itself has made it clear. Are we seeing the Orthodox Church full of faulty hierarchs? Absolutely. We are absolutely seeing that. We are in a sad state of global orthodoxy with ecumenicism, with people, again, bowing down to the beast system. And so now in France, as you guys know, you don't have your stabby passport. Well, then you can't go into the hospital. You can't go into the grocery store. You can't go to your cafe. You can't do X, Y, and Z. This is part of the beast system. That is even what the book of Revelation says, is that whenever the mark of the beast comes, I'm not saying that this is, because according to Scripture, it's either going to be on your hand or your forehead, but I would suspect that this is all training us and priming us and Pavlovianly getting us to be conducive to that global system, which is getting and being put in place right now. So, a servant of the beast system. So, now, what do we as Orthodox Christians then believe of the face? What do we think of the face? So, let's read this first article I want to share with you guys. And this is called Face to Face. This is from the OrthodoxCityHermit.com blog. I thought this was a nice little article, and I'm going to quickly read through these things. I got a lot of reading, a lot of content to get through today, guys. So it's going to be fast reading. Put on your thinking caps and stay up to speed here. So nothing about the human body is as intimate as the face, correct? We generally think of other aspects of our bodies when we say, quote, intimate, but it is our face that reveals the most about us. It is the face we seek to watch in order to see what others are thinking or even who they are. The importance of the face is emphasized repeatedly in the Scriptures. In the Old Testament, it is the common expression for how we rightly meet one another, and rarely God himself, face to face. In the New Testament, St. Paul uses the language of the face to describe our transformation into the image of Christ, how we're made in the image of God. The holy icons are doubtless the most abundant expression of the theology of the face, and perhaps among the most profound contributions of orthodoxy to the world and the proclamation of what it truly means to be human. Every saint, from the least to the greatest, shares the same attributes as Christ in their icons. We see all of them face to face. In the icons, no person is ever depicted in profile, with two exceptions, Judas Iscariot and the demons. The only two that we do not see fully their face is Judas and demons. Let that sink in. For it is in the vision of the face that we encounter someone as person. It is our sin that turns us away from the face of another, our effort to make ourselves somehow other than or less than personal. It is a manifestation of our turning away from God. In human behavior, the emotion most associated with hiding the face is shame. The feeling of shame brings an immediate and deep instinct to hide or cover the face. Even infants confronted with embarrassment or mild shame will cover their faces with their hands or quickly tuck their face under the chest of the one holding them. It is part of the unbearable quality of shame. Hiding is the instinctive response of Adam and Eve. We were naked and we hid, unquote, is their explanation. Readers have always assumed that it is the nakedness of their intimate parts that drove the first couple to hide. I think it is more likely that it was their faces they most wanted to cover. And an extended use of the story of Moses' encounter with God, after which he veiled his face, St. Paul presents the gospel of Christ as a transforming face-to-face relationship with Christ. Therefore, since we have such hope, we use great boldness of speech, unlike Moses, who put a veil over his face so that the children of Israel could not look steadily at the end of what was passing away, but their minds were blinded. For until this day, the same veil remains unlifted in the reading of the Old Testament, because the veil is taken away in Christ. But even to this day, when Moses is read, a veil lies on their heart. Nevertheless, when one turns to the Lord, the veil is taken away. Now the Lord is the Spirit, and where the Spirit is, the Lord is. There is liberty. Liberty. Freedom. But we all, with unveiled face, beholding as in a mirror the glory of the Lord, are being transformed into the same image of glory to glory, just as the Spirit of the Lord. Therefore, since we have this ministry as we have received mercy, we do not lose heart. But we have renounced the hidden things of shame, not walking in craftiness, nor holding the word of God deceitfully, but by manifestation of the truth, commending ourselves to every man's conscience in the sight of God. But even if our gospel is veiled, it is veiled to those who are perishing, whose minds the God of this age has blinded. Who would that be? Who do not believe, lest the light of the gospel of the glory of Christ, who is the image of God, should shine on them. For we do not preach ourselves, but Christ Jesus the Lord, and ourselves are bondservants for Jesus' sake. For it is the God who commanded light to shine out of the darkness, whom has shone in our hearts to give light and the knowledge of the glory of God in the face of Jesus Christ. The veil of Moses is an image of the blindness of the heart and spiritual bondage. Turning to Christ removes this blindness and hardens the heart. With unveiled faces, we behold the knowledge and the glory of God revealed in the face of Jesus Christ and are transformed into the very image which is Christ. In Russian, the word lik can mean face and person. Sergius Bulgakov plays with various forms of the word in his book Icons and the Name of God. It is an essential Orthodox insight. The Greek word person or prosompon, which again is reference to a mask for theatrical play, if you guys aren't aware, also carries this double meaning. The unveiled or hidden face is a face without shame, a face that no longer hides from its shame. This is perhaps the most fundamental aspect of our transformation in Christ. The self in whom shame has been healed is the self that is able to live as person. We are restored to our essential and authentic humanity, our personhood. We behold Christ face to face as a person would, who looks into a mirror. And as St. John says, we shall be like him, for we shall see him as he is. The sacrament of penance boldly walks directly into the world of shame. Archimandrite Zacharias says, quote, "If we know to whom we present ourselves, we shall have the courage to take some shame upon ourselves. I remember that when I became a spiritual father at the monastery, Father Sophrony said to me, quote, encourage the young people that come to you to confess just those things about which they are ashamed, because the shame will be converted into spiritual energy that can overcome the passions and sin," unquote. And confession, the energy of shame, becomes energy against the passions. As for a definition of shame, I would say it is a lack of courage to see ourselves as God sees us. This is not an invitation to toxic shame, nor an invitation to take on yet more shame. It is a description of the healing from shame that is given in Christ. That healing is, quote, the courage to see ourselves as God sees us, unquote. It is the courage to answer like the prophet Samuel, "Here I am," when God calls. God called to Adam and spoke from his shameful and faceless hiding. Some of the mystical sermons of the Father speak of Christ seeking Adam out a second time, but this time in Hades, when Christ descended to the dead. There Adam hid no longer, turned to face the risen Lord. And so the traditional icon of the resurrection shows Christ taking Adam and Eve out of the shamed gates of Hades. The gates of Hades are written in our faces, as are the gates of paradise. It is the mystery of our true self, the one that is being recreated in the image of Christ, precisely as we behold him face to face and discover that no shame need remain. Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty, sweet liberty. So now I want to switch over to this encyclopedic article, and so let me edit this a bit real quick. We need to go right there. We need to go right here. Bam. Okay. So now we're going to be looking at the Encyclopedia Britannica article on masks. On mask. So here is the general description. Let's see. Actually, just wearing masks. I thought this was the best part of the article. So we're just going to start here. The person who wears the mask is also considered to be in direct association with the mask spirit force and is consequently exposed to like personal danger of being affected by it. So when you wear a mask, you can be spiritually affected by the spirit that represents that mask. Okay, interesting. For the sake of protection, the wearer, like the mask maker, is required to follow certain sanctioned procedures in using the mask. In some respects, he plays the role of an actor in cooperation or collaboration with the mask. Without the dance and posturing routines that the mask wearer performs, often, such as social distancing, I would say this would be part of the performance, often to the accompaniment of music, the mask would remain in representation without a full life force. The real drama and power of its form is the important contribution of the wearer. Covered by the mask and costume, the performer loses his previous identity and assumes a new one. Upon donning the mask, the wearer sometimes undergoes a psychic change, and as in trance, sometimes the spirit character depicted by the mask. Usually, however, the wearer skillfully becomes a, quote, partner of the character he is personating, giving to the mask not only an important spark of vitality, but the life flashing from his own eyes, but also bringing it alive by his movements and poses, bringing alive the global reset, bringing alive the New World Order by every single person who capitulates. Their own spark, their own life force, which is an uncreated energy of the true triune living God, is being transmuted into an energetic force to give life to a global prison, the prison planet, the one world government. But often the wearer seems to become psychologically one with the character he is helping to create. Oh, is this why the pedophilia, the sexual degeneracy, the abortion, the crime, the loss of private property, the control of the central banks. Is this why the people who are most in favor of these masks are also most in favor of the progressive agenda itself, generally speaking? And who would be behind that? He seems to become an automaton without his own will. Guys, we're talking about tribal traditions here. I know it sounds like we're literally talking about the people wearing surgical masks. This isn't an article written about tribal mask wearing during ritualistic settings, okay? Let me read these two sentences again. Actually, let me move back. Usually, however, the wearer skillfully becomes a partner of the character he is impersonating, giving to the mask not only an important spark of vitality by the light flashing from his own eyes, but bringing it alive by his movements and poses. But often the wearer seems to become psychologically one with the character he is helping to create. He seems to become an automaton without his own will, which has become subservient to that of the personage of the mask. At all times, there remains some important, even in sub rosa, association between the mask and its wearer. The role of the spectator. Now, I read all this. I forget which was some of the best stuff. Here, psychologically, the spectators are linked to the past through the spirit of power and the mask. And depending on the character represented by the mask, this may in some cases lead the participants to a state of complete absorption or near frenzy. In some cases, the spirit or supernatural being depicted is viewed with rejoicing and almost a familiarity, which leads to gaiety that has a cathartic aspect. Even so, the mask has a spirit, content, that is respected and revered, even if it does not depict a being with malignant potential. All these forms have spirit and magical qualities and thus are esteemed as agents of the accomplishment of superhuman acts. Some masks, however, do represent malignant, evil, or potentially harmful spirits. Maybe a mask that signifies sickness and death may be pointing towards that direction. These are often used to keep a required balance of power or a traditional social and political relationship of inherited positions within a culture. Is it using to maintain the stratification of our society between the haves and the have-nots, between the elites and the peasants? The characters depicted are also prescribed by tradition to enact roles to achieve the desired ends. The drama involving these masks is often associated with secret societies, especially in Africa, where the greatest range of masked forms and functions can be observed. These forms are often used in restricted performances where only select persons can view them. Restricted observation is also found in other cultures. Meaning and aesthetic response. On the basis of present knowledge, it would appear that there is not or has not been any set response or reaction by any one of the three groups involved with the mask, the artist, the wearer, and the spectator. There is, however, a reaction of the particular kind common to every culture, a response such as awe, delight, and pleasure, fear, and even terror. These are as traditionally determined as the forms and costumes of the masks themselves. This is a learned inherent pattern of the conduct of each culture. Masks, therefore, that have a closely comparable appearance in several unrelated groups in quite different parts of the world often have totally dissimilar meanings and functions, except for the new one, which has the same meaning and the same function no matter where you are in the world. Okay? The significance of masks can be determined only by reference to accounts of personal observation of the mask and the setting of their own culture. The aesthetic effect of masks, on the other hand, since they derive from the forms of their disposition within their design, can readily be evaluated as art objects. But this evaluation is based on elements very different from those appraised within a mask's own culture. This is partly because the total artistic qualities of a mask derive both from its exterior forms and its meanings and function within its cultural context. There exist, however, in all cultures criteria for determining the quality of objects as art. These criteria differ from the culture to another, and they may be only known from investigations carried out from within. Preservation and collecting. So the preservation and disposal of masks is often decreed by tradition. Many masks, and often their form and function, are passed down through clans, families, special societies, and from individual to individual. They are personally, spiritually reactivated or aesthetically restored by repainting and redecorating without destroying the basic form and symbolism. In many instances, however, the mask is used only for one ceremony or occasion and then is discarded or destroyed, sometimes by burning. Not until the late 19th and 20th centuries were masks viewed out of their ceremonial context, appreciated as art objects, and studied as cultural artifacts. Now, I would say that, again, these are being used. They're going to be, again, strictly associated with this COVID-19. Oops, I said it. The COTEL. So the COTEL is going to be essential to tying, again, the use of the mask that we are now seeing. It's always going to come back. Whenever they reinstitute the mask, it's going to be a new COTEL strand, a new COTEL variant, right? Because the Pavlovian sympathetic relationships. The function and forms of masks. Many masks are primarily associated with ceremonies that have religious and social significance or are concerned with funerary customs, fertility rites, or the curing of sickness. Huh. Wow, who would have thought that? Many are used for rituals related to the curing of sickness. Other masks are used on festive occasions or to portray characters in a dramatic performance and in reenactments of mythological events. Masks are also used for warfare as protective devices in particular activities or during inclement weather. Social and religious uses. As indicated above, masks representing harmful spirits were often used to keep a required balance of power or a traditional relationship of inherited positions within a culture. The forms of these masks invariably were prescribed by tradition, as were their uses. This type of mask was often associated with secret societies, especially in Africa, where the greatest range and types of functions can be found. They were also widely used among the oceanic peoples of the South Pacific among American Indians. Masks have served as an important role as a means of discipline, and have been used to admonish. Common in China, Africa, Oceania, and North America, admonitory masks usually completely cover the features of the wearer. Some African peoples hold the first mask to be used was admonitory one. In one version, the mask origin, a child repeatedly told not to, persisted in following its mother to fetch water. To frighten and discipline the child, the mother painted a hideous face on the bottom of her water gourd. Another version is that the mask was invented by a secret society to escape recognition while punishing marauders. In New Britain, an island of Papua New Guinea, members of the secret society called the Duk appear in monstrous 5-foot masks to police, to judge, and to execute offenders. Interesting. Aggressive supernatural spirits of an almost demonic nature are represented by these masks, which are constructed from a variety of materials, usually including tapa, bark cloth, and pith of other reeds. These materials are painted in brilliant colors with brick red, acid green predominating. In many cultures throughout the world, a judge wore a mask to protect him from future recriminations. In this instance, the mask represents a traditionally sanctioned spirit from the past who assumes responsibility for the decision levied on the culprit. Rituals often nocturnal by members of secret societies wearing ancestor masks are reminders of the ancient sanction of their conduct. In many cultures, these mask ceremonies are intended to prevent miscreant acts and to maintain the circumscribed activities of the group. Along the Guinea coast of West Africa, for instance, many highly realistic masks represent ancestors who enjoyed specific cultural roles. The mask symbolized sanction and control when donned by the wearer. Among some Dan and Gree peoples of Liberia, the Ivory Coast, ancestor masks with generic features act as intermediaries for the transmission and petitions of offerings with respect to the gods. These traditional ancestral emissaries exert their spirit power and social control over the community. Now, I want to flip over to this really insightful article here. Let me see. It looks like I have a little bit of it cut off. There. And there. Okay, so now you guys should be able to see this article. And this is on the significance of masks. Guys, please smash that like. If you have just joined us, smash that like. Smash that like. Okay, so now I want to read this article called The Significance of Masks. This is a very, very interesting article. It's on the significance of mask in ritual and spirituality. What is a mask? A mask is just an ornament or article worn on the face for disguise, entertainment purposes, or even as a form of protection. Masks have commonly been used during ritual and spiritual services and have been used to create, amplify, or fulfill the wearer's identity or sense of inner spirituality. Ritual masks can be found throughout the world, and the function of these masks and ritual are usually religious or magically inclined. Some characteristics include the enabling of communication with unseen, undead, or giving magical powers to shamans or spiritual healers within tribes and various communities who wear them. This review article will explore the different themes within different cultures regarding the use of masks in ritual and how it coincides and relates to identity building in ceremonies and proceedings. In the study done by Ms. Chute in 1992, the notion of masks incorporated in death rituals is discussed and explored. They mention that when a death arises within a tightly knit community with shared cultural and religious values, the deceased memory lives on as a life passage or as a reminder in the creation of a mask. They proceed to explain that life and death masks were made for many different reasons, but specifically, before photography was invented, life masks were the closest representations of an individual, whereas death masks served to preserve an individual's features as a token of remembrance, and also was used when building statues. According to Ms. Chute, in the late 1890s, Lawrence Hutton, who published Portraits in Plaster, separated the creation of life and death masks into two categories, the famous and the infamous. The category of the infamous was occupied by criminals, convicts, felons, and so on. However, life masks for such felons also exist. According to Keats, masks are also used as an expressive tool, as many therapists aid their clients in discovering the different, quote, faces of the self, studying the differences in speech, gestures, and mannerisms they portray upon donning a mask. This, I think, is a major effect of what we're seeing right now. Again, the people are adopting a new sense of self. They're being transmuted and transitioned into a new persona, and in so doing, are adopting new mannerisms, new norms, new values. And being both culturally and spiritually based, such masks represent a multi-dimension, a second face to the face. Wearing a mask also gives the wearer a sense of freedom, the ability to perform acts or act in such a way they could not do in everyday life, and even be the mask, the animal mask, acting like an animal or being an animal. Masked faces also portray different semiotics in the sense that they are used not only in spiritual and cultural contexts, but also for entertainment purposes, as a disguise or different facets of human nature. Evidence of the mask and its aura of spiritual power, specifically in ritual and healing processes, therapists begin using masks within their realms of psychotherapy. Further exploring the study, it was found that patients with self-esteem issues and confidence issues enabled them to behave more socially and with newfound attitudes, acting almost as a mediator between the client's conscious and unconscious worlds of the self. Now, I think what's really interesting, if we believe what we read about the Orthodox theology of the face and the concept of shame, and how in Orthodoxy we understand the hiding of one's face associated with the shame response, and that we lose our shame when we confess our sins. We valorize our face when we come closer to Christ. We always have the face of the individuals present within our iconography, right? The face is very, very important. And so as it says here, people with low self-esteem, I would say people with high shame. If people, again, from an Orthodox perspective, if they engage what we would consider any sort of sinful behavior, whether they're conscious of it or not, they deep down have a sense of shame. Now, maybe they celebrate their shame and their flamboyancy. Okay, that's fine. But the new masks allow them a sense of social protection, allows them a space to be more proud and be more expressive of themselves. And I would say, again, since the COVID pandemic, we've seen the degenerate, just the degeneracy coming out of TikTok and on the social media. It seems like it's been exacerbated to a degree. And I would suspect, again, the masked culture allows for these things to reemerge in a more striking way, because without the mask, you're more exposed. People can see you. I can see you. I can see your face. And if you have a lot of built-in shame, then you'd much rather prefer a society where you can cover the uniqueness or the shame over yourself. You can cover your face. Between Asian cultures such as Japan and the Balinese cultures, the donning of masks in ritual is strikingly correlated. Most masks are used in ritual and spiritual processes that in turn enable them to involve themselves in a mysterious, quote, or otherworldliness that is apparent even to those who are uninitiated. It is probable that such masks developed out of indigenous religious practices without any foreign influence. Each has a strong identity and powerful, sometimes legendary aura within a culture. A report was published in September of 1980, issue of the Alcalade, which explored the notions involved with mask wearing in the tribal regions of Mexico. Researcher Donald Coldry discovered that the masks were not just merely a disguise, but is also a significant function that relates to the shamanism, the symbolism, and social uses. He found that the Mexican Indians believed that the act of covering one's face relates directly to the soul, and that Mexican masks were understood as mystical devices of transformation in which the wearer becomes someone or something else. Okay, let me read that last sentence one more time. And keep in mind, again, the shame, orthodoxy, the personhood theology, the lack of covering one's face. He found that in Mexican Indians believed that the act of covering one's face relates directly to the transformation in which the wearers, directly to the soul. I skipped a line. He found that in Mexican Indians believed that the act of covering one's face relates directly to the soul, and that the Mexican masks were understood as a mystical device of transformation in which the wearers become someone or something else. A typical cliche that one may encounter when studying African art or ritual practices is that men are the only ones who wear masks, while the women prepare, cook, and clean for the festivities or ceremony. I was amazed when I read that women too don the mask and have their own rituals and ceremonies as well. Now, here's what I would suspect with this. We are moving toward an androgynous, transhumanist future. And so the global reset, the one world government, doesn't want these traditional distinctions. So yes, in the African tribal setting, it was the men who typically wore the mask while the women were doing domestic activities, taking care of the children, cooking and cleaning and preparing for the festivities. But as we've seen with the 20th century and the 21st century of second, third, we would just say all, first, second, third, whatever wave of feminism we're now in, I don't even know what to call it, women have becoming more and more and more like a man. Men have becoming more and more effeminized, emasculated, to the point where now you can generally, it's often you can walk behind somebody and you can't tell if it's a male or a female. And so the fact that we exist in a global initiation ritual where everybody's wearing a mask, I think is highlighting a distinction even from the tribal setting where typically men were the ones wearing the mask. Now everybody's wearing the mask because we're moving into a androgynous society. This is the future, an androgynous society. Look at Baphomet. Look at the male goat deity with the female breasts. This androgyny is the idea of man creating the new sex, right? Doing away with male and female. Male and female is what God did, and this whole thing, this whole global reset, the whole globalism is about destroying the image of God, destroying what God created, beginning with mRNA technology, which alters your genes. It's DNA. It's gene therapy. This is the first step in the transhumanist project. In Zambia, men and women face initiations. Who would have thought that women also partake in mask-wearing festivities? In the 1998 study by Elizabeth Cameron, she spends time with the Kabompo district in Zambia to learn, observe, and participate in the initiation rituals of men and women. The Mwadi, meaning the initiation of the potential mother, is experienced as an inter-ethnic ritual and is easily recognized by women from different ethnic tribes. When a young female matures, signified and recognized by her breast development, the family prepares and plans her initiation. The women, during their initiation phase, don masks and dance guided by the four basic elements. First, her entire attire, clothes, mask, acoustic mask acts as a disguise, focusing on oral presence. Second, the transformation occurs. Third, the mask as a mediator between structures. And fourth, the mask is seen as a medium of articulating power. The mask is not only seen as a means of disguise, but also as an intercessor, a medium of transformation. A completely new identity is created via the wearing of a mask, a journey to say the least. In conclusion, the different cultures examined and explored today all demonstrated similar characteristics in relation to mask wearing. The mask is more than just a simple disguise. In ritual, it is seen as a medium of transformation, a deity that enables one to be free. I loved that. Who is the deity ultimately behind our wearing of the mask that is now, if we submit, going to allow us to be free? Right? This is a theological, a spiritual warfare for your soul. This is a depersoning project. This is getting you to become subservient to a one-world order which is ultimately run by the evil one. This is the spirit of the Antichrist. And so it is through the mask, it is through that which enables you and relates you to the deity that is going to set you and allow you to be free. It's not going to be that which was created by God. It's going to be that which was created by man. The mask is more than just a simple disguise. In ritual, it is seen as a medium of transformation, a deity that enables one to be free, to be someone or something that they are not. Masks create identities for the wearer, an identity that he or she may never dream of showing or pursuing when they are themselves. Although different masks play different roles and have different powers across various cultures and traditions, they each interrelate through similarity of function, interpretation. They all serve purposes. I understand that the relationship must be harmonious and respectful with the divine entities and powers involved in the rituals or ceremonies, and that full focus and intention also plays a huge role in successful mask wearing for ritualistic and spiritual practices. This was an interesting topic to explore. Although I have covered minor facets, there is still much more to learn about this fascinating practice. The mask can be a limitation, but you just deal with it. You do get superhuman strength and pumpkin bombs and all this other stuff to express yourself with. Unquote. William Defoe. And I would say that if you do wear the mask, you do get a supernatural power. You get to belittle and control those who refuse to submit. Okay, next thing that I want to read to you guys is what is an initiation rite. So we just talked about some of this stuff. A lot of this, if this is a large initiation ritual, which I believe the focusing on the mask wearing and the stabbed first, non-stabbed, I believe this is ultimately an initiation ritual. There's all types of initiation rituals, but we've now looked into the role of masks as a transformative, transmutive process of the person wearing it towards the thing which the mask represents. Now, I was trying to highlight that I believe the mask that we are wearing now ultimately represents sickness, ultimately represents submission, ultimately represents how people are infectious. It ultimately represents personal separation. It ultimately represents depersonalization. It ultimately represents collectiveness over uniqueness, personal uniqueness. It ultimately represents shame of some sort if we understand the Orthodox theology. It ultimately represents tribal allegiance, the loss of liberty for public health, and a servant of the beast system. These are the 10 things that I think the current mask represents. This is the spirit, and this is what the transformative process of persons are moving towards, to adopt all these 10 characteristics as part of their own new identity. Now, do they think that they are subservient to a beast system? Of course not. Of course not. But ultimately, if this thing represents sickness, it represents that which is close or near death. It represents infection. Who does our God, how does he relate to sickness and death? There is no death in God. There is no sickness in Christ. It's eternal life in the Logos. And so this mask, again, as Orthodox, we don't cover our mask. The face is extremely important. Therefore, this mask is really a way to get us subservient to the evil one, that which is death, that which is the father of lies, that which is ultimately sin. That's the point of the new mask and the transformative process. Initiation rites, this article comes to us from encyclopedia.com, encyclopedia.com. It's been reviewed by Oxford University Press. So I know we're dealing with compromised institutional sources here, whether it's Merriam-Webster, which I began with, or it's the Britannica Encyclopedia, which I read from regarding masks. Now, regarding initiation rites, we're looking at the Oxford University Press on encyclopedia.com. So initiation rites, what are they? Initiation rites are regarded by anthropologists as a special class of rites of passage, displaying a tripartite sequential form dominated by the themes of death from one social position and rebirth to a new one. Well-known initiation rituals in Western society include initiations into craft guilds, Masonic lodges, and fraternities and sororities in American colleges, as well as into religious orders and cult groups. These vary from relatively spontaneous events to highly complex ceremonials where the testing of an initiate's worthiness is combined with the inculcation of esoteric knowledge and injunctions to secrecy. A similar range of rituals is found in traditional societies, with many of the more elaborate associated with entry into adulthood, which is also sometimes associated with membership of cults and secret societies. Such rituals commonly stretch over many months, or how about a decade, from 2020 to 2030. Or even over many years in cases where the initiation involves a progressive set of grades, such as those for initiation into manhood by Australian Aboriginal and New Guinea groups. Now, again, what are people being initiated to is the global citizen. So whatever your identity is, your nationality, your personal family, your ancestral line, all these forms of identity are under attack. Because the new global Great Reset is about destroying these things. It's about undermining nationality. It's about undermining your ancestry. It's about undermining your ethnicity as a form of identity, unless, again, you have a lack of melanin in your skin. Then that is conducive to, again, the global reset, because they have to collapse the economic structures of the Western world in order to allow the spreading and the infrastructure of the global reset. So the initiation process, the ritual initiation that I believe the world is under, is a ritual initiation into the global order, which is a new understanding of citizenry, which is really a new understanding of adulthood, right? It's a new understanding of adulthood. You have to get your stabbies when you go through school, right? Another sort of initiative process. You get your stabbies here, how many, I don't even know how many it is up to now. And that was a sort of mandated process, but you could always opt out due to religious beliefs and traditions. Some places are still allowing you to do that for the stabby now, the Kufid stabby. But this is about an initiation into a new understanding of citizenry, to a new understanding of adulthood, to the global reset. At the heart of all these initiations is the right to membership of a tightly defined community, to a distinctive identity and status. Exactly what I'm telling you. The individual is both tested for his fitness and, in many rituals, transformed and made over in line with cultural prescription. To some extent, the themes of hazing, humiliation of the novice, and the often dangerous ordeals, or ordeals which are made to appear dangerous to the initiated, play their part in this context. The submission of the individual to the authority of the group and its representatives is also an overt element. Let me read this to you guys again. We're talking about initiation rituals here. The submission of the individual to the authority of the group and its representatives is also an overt element. For example, Among the Mindi of Sierra Leone, boys must be initiated into Poro society before they are recognized as an adult. To this end, they are eaten by the Poro spirits, an act which is represented by the painful scarifications made upon their naked and prone bodies. This is followed by a prolonged period where the initiates must fend for themselves, secluded for a year from the rest of the community. Secluded from the community. It's almost like they have to social distance. Maybe theirs is a little bit further. Submission to the spirits impersonated by masked elders is followed by a period of self-reliance, both qualities deemed necessary for successful adult life. Okay, so guys, keep in mind what we're talking about here. We're talking about a ritual initiation going on right now. This stuff should be ringing a bell loud and clear in your mind. Next paragraph. The particular form, such as ordeals, rises further problems of interpretation. Initiations into adulthood, as this example shows, often involve permanent forms of bodily mutilation from the extraction or filing down of teeth, the scarification and tattooing, genital operations of many kinds, elongation of the earlobes or necks, and the insertion of facial or other bodily transformation. Guys, ornamentation. What is so interesting about this stuff is that many initiation rites you can potentially die in. So if you get into some of these initiation rites into adulthood for young men, for example, within like hunter-gatherer tribal communities, the young boys, just like the one that I was talking about, where the young boy is he's separated from the community for a year, he could potentially die. There are real threats out there. And so if we're going through a ritual initiation right now, wouldn't it be interesting to release a man-made virus that will kill people, creating, again, as it said earlier, selecting for the fittest, the most subservient to the new initiative process, submitting to those of authority? It seems like, again, creating a global health pandemic would be ideal to reconstruct a tribal initiative process on a global scale. All such practices, talking about the scarification or permanent marks on one's body due to an initiation ritual, maybe that is almost like getting a stabby, a permanent mark on one's body, right? This one's talking about bodily mutilation, the extraction or filing down of teeth, tattooing, scarification, genital operations, elongation of earlobes, insertion of facial or bodily forms of ornamentation, meaning facial piercings. What about an alteration to your genetics? What about an alteration to your own DNA? All such practices leave visible and permanent marks of membership. Exactly. Literal inscriptions of the social onto the body. The question is whether this is all. Is the form they take purely arbitrary, a matter for the free play of the cultural imagination, or do some of these mutilations betray ulterior motives? The issue has also arisen in its most controversial forms with respect to genital mutilations such as circumcision, for which one might think every possible explanation has been advanced. It has been interpreted, amongst other things, as a substitute for human sacrifice and castration, as a hygienic measure, as a way of increasing sexual desire or fertility, or alternatively of decreasing it, as a way of enhancing the differences between male and female genitalia, or, though it's mimicry of female bleeding, a way of making them more similar, and so on. All of these may form a part of logical exegesis. The question of whether they have any wider or universal validity is today generally regarded as both unfashionable and unprofitable. Anthropologists, pointing to the extent of cultural variation, tend to insist on the importance of contextual understanding. The majority hold the line originally advanced early in the 20th century by Van Gennep, I don't know who that is, who wrote that culturally the body has been treated simply like a block of wood, which each has cut and trimmed to suit himself. So interesting that many initiations cause some type of permanent bodily marking. Could that be the stabby itself? Could that be the mRNA technology, which would be perfect, again, for a global ritual initiation? For many years, the anthropological postulate of arbitrariness opened up a broad chasm between psychoanalytic and anthropological approaches to the subject, with the latter contesting that psychoanalytic view of the genital mutilation is central to the development and purposes of such rites. Social function was stressed as the expense of sexual meaning, and no essential difference was seen between genitalia and other bodily mutilations. Anthropologists tended to rather problematize the role of pain and trauma in such rites in terms of their capacity to forcefully impose social values, to leave indelible marks on the body and memory. Socialization is also at issue in considering the Stoic bravery accepted by the novice in many rituals, often, though not exclusively, and those that extol marital values for the menfolk. Many such rituals invite comparison with modern forms of military training. For example, among the Gisu of Uganda, boys stand the ordeal of circumcision when they are between 18 and 24 in a public demonstration of courage, where even involuntary movements of the body, such as blinking of the eyes, are taken as a sign of cowardice. This is believed to give them a quality of manhood which differs in kind from that of men of non-circumcising tribes, and which radically disguises them from women in the force of their anger and potential for violence. Nevertheless, with gender identity and personhood so clearly at issue, the old divide between the disciplines is no longer so evident. As anthropologists have begun to explore the subjective experience of initiation as it is encoded in different cultural idioms, initiations do not simply bestow a status in the sense of formal bequeathing it, but many aim at an active transformation of human potential. In her study of the Chisungu rites among the matrilineal Bimba of Zambia, Aubrey Richards directly addressed the question of what is taught during the girl's initiatory ceremony. The ritual prepares a girl directly for marriage, yet, as Richards noted, although the girl is subjected to repeated injunctions of her coming role as wife and mother, very little is this formal instruction goes beyond what she already knows from growing up in the society. But through the elaborate ritual with its focus on fertility and its dangers, Richards argues that teaching is still a relevant dimension to our understanding and the purpose of such rites. We should understand this is not about teaching knowledge, but rather about teaching attitudes. As Bimba women regrow their girls, by undergoing the initiation, Bimba girls learn to experience themselves differently and are made ready to cope with the coming dangers in fertility, in which they are responsible for protecting their home and hearth from the potential polluting powers of sexuality. Regrowing in the context of the acquisition of adult gender identity is also at issue in male initiations in New Guinea, for the plethora of explicit sexual symbolism. For example, among the Sambia of New Guinea, the initiation of boys into manhood begins at the age of around 8 and lasts many years. These years are dedicated to ridding the boys of polluting material influences and turning them into pure and fierce men. To this end, they are subjected to repeated painful episodes of bleeding, induced by inserting sharp grasses into their nostrils. This is held to release accumulated maternal blood. This is followed by repeated episodes of fellation by adult male initiators to feed the boy masculinity. By repeated episodes of fellation by adult men, to feed masculinity, a masculinity which is associated with physical strength and military prowess. So we're talking about, sounds like oral sex on grown men. In these cases, anthropologists have usefully brought psychoanalytic forms of understanding to bear and understanding the dynamics of gender creation, though always in the context of local understandings of the person. Studying the transformative powers embodied in such rituals is an eclectic venture, in which many forms of understanding are applicable to a comprehension of the potency of such ritual processes. Victor Turner, for example, was particularly concerned to explore the existential dimensions involved in the experiences of liminality, occurring most usually in the mid-phase of such rites when the person is ritually dead to the world. He sees the key process here as one of ritual leveling, with the person stripped of social insignia and signs of secular status and subject to humiliation by ordeal, test, and trauma. It is the humbling process which interests him, and he speculates that it contains a revitalizing element for both the individual and the community. For the initiated, it reaffirms the bonds of essential humanity upon the social order ultimately rests, uniting him closely with others with whom he has shared the experience. The stabby and the mask wearing. Culturally, it seems to allow also other possibilities. The ritual dissolution of normal social forms as initiants are ritually refashioned allows for a juggling of the normal factors of existence, a freeing of creative potential, the often monstrous nature of sacra, of mask and effigies, and of contact with normally forbidden, throw elements of the culture into relief by exaggeration, challenge, inversion, and paradox. Okay. So one of the things that I thought was so interesting, again, about the sexual discussion there, the sexuality, is that what we just saw today is his name James Younger? James Younger is the I think the 8-year-old boy whose mother wants to sexually transgender him to a girl, and that his father was in opposition to it. It's been now a court case in the state of Texas, I think, for well over a year, of which the mother wanted to transgender her son. The father was opposed to it. When the son was with his father, he said he wasn't in favor of it. But regarding the things that are going on in our society now, parents have, if Canada, they'll take your child away if you don't transgender them and they want to. Now, if your mother wants you to and you don't, you still have to get it done. And so we see at a global level this weird religious relationship to androgyny, to hermaphrodism, to transgenderism, to, again, as this article was mentioning, the state of liminality, the liminal state, the state in between, right? And this global reset. So now James Younger, the judge in Texas, just said that, nope, you're going to have to go with your mother, and your mother wants to transition you, so you're going to have to do it. And so it's so weird that the transgender stuff is often, I think, also part of this, and the normalization of it is part of this larger global reset, this change in values, this global reset in sexual values, sexual identity, sexual norms. And so it's strange times that we have in front of us. And so I have one more article that I want to share with you guys before hopping into some of the super chats. And so this is the one that I wanted to share with you last. I thought this was very insightful. Let me open this up a little wider. Bam. Okay. So we're looking at okay, there we go. Why are you wearing a mask? The pagan ritual of transformation. Let me scoot over here a little bit more. The pagan ritual of transformation. The pagan ritual of transformation, the ritual, Julian Huxley once wrote that the basic elements in cultural transmission and transformation are psychological. Yes, of course. Disguised under a mask and hidden away, the initiate is more easily able to transcend the self, pushed forward toward the invisible line between the physical and spiritual realms. The pagan ritual of transformation, Julian Huxley once wrote about that the basic elements of cultural transformation are psychological. This is how we change. Since time immemorial, high rituals have been performed to transform reality. That's exactly what we are facing right now, a transformation of ultimate reality. Ritual is a special psychodrama of consciousness, a deliberate action taken to facilitate changes to the whole of the environment people exist in, starting with the mental landscape of the people themselves. Quote, the place where our reality exists is first born in a dream. Now, what's interesting about this mental realm is, from an orthodox theological point, we would say this is the battlefield. The battlefield is in your mind. Where is your mind? Right? I know where your brain is. I know where your hand is. I know where your heart is. Where is your mind? Your mind is this non-physical aspect of yourself that is extremely primary to your experience of reality. When you're thinking and you're hearing yourself think and talk, where is that at? It's in your mind. Where are the mental images when you envision something, when you imagine something? Where are those at? It's in your mind. And Orthodoxy talks about how the spiritual battleground, the battlefield, is in one's mind. You have to be so cautious about the images in your mind because this is how temptation works. This is how possession works. This is how demonic activity works. Interestingly, also, it's how good things work. But when we perform magic or under the aegis of a magical ritual, often it has to do with the transformation of mental images or enlivening mental images. I mean, just read Aleister Crowley about this stuff. Artist Sharon Devlin once bluntly described the true purpose of ritual as being, quote, a method to alter one's mind. It's a sacred drama in which you are the audience as well as the participant, and the purpose of it is to activate parts of the mind that are not activated by everyday activity. Ritual facilities and mechanics of change through specific mechanisms, a rhythm to sync to merge and flow with, a magnetic draw drawing one on the path toward transmutation. Rituals are vehicles driving home those ideas, the information, the data, the symbols which upon transformation create the language by which new society members communicate after they are initiated. This new language imparts a new understanding through definitions that the ritual generates. The ritual initiation and inducts one into, quote, the way, a new way of life or worldview, a program to guide beliefs and actions, enabling the initiate to become full and a true member of the new society. Note that ritual isn't always a conscious action. Not everyone partaking in a ritual is made explicitly aware that they are participants. And yet, still, new patterns of thoughts, of significance, are drummed in, conscious or not of the ritual in which the initiate is partaking exactly. Most people aren't even aware. The pagan ritual of transformation, the 3 stages of an initiation ritual. An initiation ritual typically involves 3 stages. Let's see if any of this sounds familiar to you. The first stage is isolation for purification. And this stage, the initiate is separated from the mundane. Did you know that the mundane literally means of the world? The initiate is largely removed from the otherwise familiar persons, places, and things that they are used to in order to be cleared of them. Oh, maybe like a global lockdown and home arrest. An initiate is forced to become detached and insulated, purged and purified. An essential element from this separation from one's typical environment is the suspension of the normal rules of living that one is used to, the normal way. Most of the initiate senses will become commanded and regulated at this time. In other words, the majority of what the initiate sees, hears, smells, touches, and tastes is deliberately controlled. In the ritual, these senses may be bombarded, modified, limited, or deprived, but regardless, perceptions and experiences are ultimately overseen by the high priest and priestesses directing the ritual's performance. The ritual enables new light to shine through a newly opened window of thoughts. With nowhere else to go except places that were, quote, allowed, the insulated, the isolated, the initiated may be forced to confront his or her own reflection and inner shadows that have been ignored or buried somewhere deep beneath the average day-to-day. These things suddenly become unavoidable. Triggers are detonated, another purge. Just as they involve surrender, initiation rituals also involve sacrifice, both the tangible that can be held in the hand and the intangible, such as behaviors, must be given up by the requirement. Now, again, I think the sacrificial element of the human population being guinea pigs for the new mRNA technology is a major part of this. It's a major part of the global ritual initiation. There are actual sacrifices being offered to the idol of scientism or the idol of centralization of power and all this different stuff. Just after all, for something to be, quote, given, something must be taken, a token of submission, an ounce of blood, a pound of clay to be remolded. Whether dramatically overt or deceitfully subtle, the ritual reinterprets reality. A new definition of reality is given. Training in the form of new behaviors and knowledge, including myths and codes, are introduced. Things necessary for new members to function properly in the society they're being inducted into are imbued during this time. Repetition is typical, as its use helps hammer home the spell on the initiates. The wearing of masks for the initiates. The wearing of masks during initiation ritual is almost always required. Masking has traditionally played an important role in the rituals of these kind. Masks hasten the suppression of the ego to help facilitate the death of the old identity before the identification with and the manifestation of a new identity. Why do they keep warning about a second wave of COVID? Well, I think obviously they already knew about the long-term effects of trying to create a virus against a corona strand. Trying to create a stabby against any type of coronavirus is non-effective and only creates more variants. Knowing that that is the case, the stabby was never about stopping COVID. It was about altering DNA. It was about an experimental sacrifice, an experimental process on humanity to see who would get it done and what's going to be the long-term effect. And if a lot of people die, so what? If some people don't die, okay, cool. This is an experimentation. This is a sacrifice to the centralized global idol. Disguised under a mask and hidden away, the initiate is more easily able to transcend the self, push forward toward that invisible line between the physical and the spiritual realms. Trauma. Trauma is yet another key aspect of this kind of initiation ceremony. It's used mostly to personalize the fear of death. Sometimes in the ritual, the act of dying is a ceremonially role played. The dark beyond the darkness, the yawning abyss. Only after death is confronted can the initiated be symbolically resurrected and reborn anew. While the process that is playing out is quite coordinated and sophisticated in reality, it may be executed in a purposefully confusing manner, so that the goalposts seem to moving back and forth, up and down, here, now, there, immediately after. This renders the initiate unable to find solid mental ground from which to make logical sense of anything. This disorientation is a key in the transformation ritual. And even, again, if you guys have read 1984, Dyer brought this up before in a stream, and it's very, very important that in 1984 they talk about that the news agencies literally contradict themselves. They purposefully gaslight you. So they say, Biden says, get the stabbies, that way you won't get the virus. Then they come out and the CDC says, actually, the stabbies are not that effective against the virus, that you can still transmit and be infected by it as an unstabbed person. This is a form of gaslighting. This is a form of getting people mentally disoriented, breaking down their cognitive faculties. The uncertain timing generates a general anxiety, further removing the initiate from reality while leaving him or her more susceptible to a type of Pavlovian conditioning, and that's exactly what the passports are. Oh, you're a dog, you want to get your treats? You normally go to the cafe and get your treats around 3 o'clock? Well, if you're going to go get your treats now, you're going to have your passport. This is a Pavlovian response. This is a Pavlovian training on the minds of those who are submitting. This weakens the defenses just as a virus would, only this has the potential to break down the individual much more completely than a virus. Very true. Whatever the finer details, the previous way of life is shed like an old skin at the end of the ritual, an end that comes before the new beginning. The change begins, the transition. This is the second phase, the transition. As the old self symbolically dies and passes away, the initiate descends into a state of liminality, a sort of fever, dream, purgatory, nowhere land, the void in the middle. Thus the old self dies as the initiate is purified. The initiate is now a white room, a blank canvas, washed, primed, desperate for paint, a tabula rasa. At the same time, his old existence and way of life dies. The initiate transcending is gradually being processed, reprogrammed, and incorporated into his new environment, reformed, reconstituted, and rebirthed into the new world that awaits at the end of the tunnel. The integration. At some point in the future, we will see the final phase of the transformation process, or the alchemical transmutation is what's going on, really. The integration. Does any of what's been described in this article sound familiar to you? And so, if you would like to read this article here, I'll share this stuff in the chat here. So if you want to see that article, you can do that there. If you guys want to read my Britannica, if you want to read more about the Britannica encyclopedia article on the history of religious masks, you can do that here. If you guys would be interested in reading that Orthodox article on the theology of the face, you can do that here. And if you would like to read that article on how masks are used in ritual, you can do that here. So all of those are posted in the live chat. Guys, if you have just joined, please smash that like button. Would greatly appreciate it. Whoa. Hey, Crispy, don't be timing out Anna. Like, okay, you're done. Okay. And if you'd like to read the encyclopedia article on initiation, you can do so here. And then there's another article that I have, if you guys are interested. This has some Bible verses and stuff in it. I'm not going to read it. I'm already to my 2-hour mark. But if you'd like to read this article, which is fairly insightful, you can do so here at this one. So, anyways, guys, that's going to conclude today's stream. Again, the whole thesis of today's stream is that if you look at the historical, tribal, and religious use of masks, of the initiation process, that we are going through something very, very similar. And the spirit of the mask, I would say, again, every mask within a tribal and religious setting is pointing to a deity of some sort. It's pointing towards something that transcends the collective. What is the cloth that we're putting, the surgical mask we're putting on our face, what is that pointing towards? I say it signifies sickness, submission, and people are infectious, personal separation, depersonalization, collectiveness over individual uniqueness, masks of shame, tribal allegiance, loss of liberty for public health, and ultimately a servant to the beast system. And so that's how we're going to be Pavlovianly trained to submit to the beast system. You want your croissant, you want your this or that, you're going to have to submit. And so it's striking when you begin to look at the academic definitions of masks, mask wearers, mask initiations, transformative processes, that it's quite clear that's exactly what we are going through right now. So anyways, I hope this stream was insightful. I hope that it helped maybe connect some dots for you guys. So thank you very much. I will now look at some of the super chats. First super chat. Here, I will refresh all the super chats, by the way, just so you can see everybody who contributed. Tobin, PJ, and Squee donated $10, and he said, please pray for me that I can get connected with a priest and an Orthodox parish. Please pray that demons stay out of my dreams and crushing me with wicked, blasphemous thoughts. Well, Tobin, we absolutely, I assume your first name is Tobin, so everybody out there listening, if you could keep Tobin in your prayer that he's able to find a priest and join an Orthodox parish. Again, we hope that you do, brother. We absolutely hope that you do. That's how you come home. I hope everybody comes to orthodoxy. At least if you're Christian, at least if you're praying to Christ, that's certainly a step in the right direction. But here at Church of the Eternal Logos, we obviously believe orthodoxy to be the one true world religion and the true presentation of Christian theology. And we will definitely pray that you get connected with a priest and an Orthodox parish. We will certainly pray that you are able to not be demonically influenced. First of all, if you feel like you're being demonically influenced, you need to start using the Jesus prayer. Lord Jesus Christ, Son of God, please have mercy on me, a sinner. Whenever you're feeling like you're being attacked, start saying the Jesus prayer and don't stop. Do not stop saying the Jesus prayer. Lord Jesus Christ, Son of God, please have mercy on me, a sinner. This is how you can begin to cleanse the space around you. You can cleanse your own heart. You can cleanse your own mind. If you feel like you're being demonically attacked, if you're able, get some holy water. I got holy water right here. I need to get an actual thing for it, like an Orthodox container. I don't. Also, if you have if you could get some icons, I'd recommend some icons to help cleanse your space. But the number one thing, if you're not Orthodox and you're not in an Orthodox parish, you don't have a spiritual father, use the Jesus prayer. Lord Jesus Christ, Son of God, please have mercy on me, a sinner. So Tobin, we will all keep you in our prayers that you are able to find a priest, you're able to find an Orthodox parish, and that you'll be able to fight off any sort of demonic attack you may be experiencing in your dreams or in your imagination. So very, very sorry to hear that. God bless you, brother. Thank you so very much for your contribution, and thank you for being here. Next super chat comes from Mick Hale, the King of Kings. Let me refresh it for you guys. Great. I love the GIF or GIF. I always say GIF. I guess people correct me and say it's GIF. Anywho, Mick Hale, the King of Kings, donated $10, and he says, God bless you, DPH. Lord, have mercy on this world of sinners. Absolutely. Lord, have mercy on me. Lord, have mercy on all of us. But if things are going on that we suspect with the gene therapy technology inside these stabbies, if the global passport system, the publication making public our medical records is the new norm and people are not resisting, Lord, have mercy on us all. Lord, have mercy on us all. I don't think things are going to get a lot more intense. So be prepared for all these things to be mandated here in the United States. They're only going to stop when we resist and we fight back. We got to push back, push back, push back. So we all need to do this. So Mick Hale, the King of Kings, thank you so much, brother, for your support. Again, says, God bless you, DPH. Lord, have mercy on this world of sinners. Amen to that. A good Orthodox brother, Nathaniel Hill, super chatted. Hey, guys, everybody wish Nathaniel Hill a congratulations. He just had a baby boy. He already had 2 girls. He's a great Orthodox brother down, well, I shouldn't say. He likes to keep his identity private, so I'm not going to say where he's located. We'll just say that he's a great Orthodox brother. He helps out in many ways. He contributes quite a bit to the community. And he just had a new baby boy. Congratulations, Nathaniel Hill, and your beautiful wife and your beautiful family. It's really amazing to see you grow in the faith. We've been in contact for probably over a year now. And he is now a father of a young boy. So amazing, amazing stuff. Congratulations to you, Nathaniel. Thank you so much, brother, for the super chat. And he says, can't wait to watch later. I'm sure it will be a fire stream. This is your purpose stream a few weeks ago. Oh, this is for your purpose stream a few weeks ago. Oh, well, thank you, brother. Thank you very, very much. Again, Nathaniel is a great, great brother. Congratulations to you, man, on having your first son. Your family lineage lives on. Your ancestors are proud, brother. Congratulations, and thank you so much for your contribution. Let me refresh it here, too. So thank you so much, brother, for your contribution. God bless you and your family, your beautiful family. I hope to be there one day. I'm very jealous. So I hope to be there. But thank you for your contribution. And tell your wife I said hi. She's a very nice lady. Tabitha, the Hoosier Mama donates a super chat. Yes. For those of you who don't know, the Hoosier Mama is somebody I went to high school with. And so I've said this before in a previous video. I was a very different person in high school. I had my ears pierced, I had my head shaved, and I wore a lot of Jordan t-shirts that were very large in nature. And so I was all about sports, football and basketball and girls. And so the Hoosier Mama is a friend from high school. She has a beautiful family, an adorable little girl, and gorgeous twin boys. And she has a wonderful nuclear family, her and her husband and her 3 kids. God bless you guys. Again, just as Nathaniel, God bless you and your family. I'm very jealous. I hope to have that myself one day. And so Hoosier Mama Tabitha, thank you so much for your contribution. You supported me last stream. You supported me this stream. Thank you so very, very much. I really, really appreciate it. And she says, I felt a very strong conviction from the beginning of this mess to keep a mask off of my children and myself. It just never made any sense, but it always felt much deeper than that too. Thanks, and keep sharing the truth. Well, thank you so much, Tabitha. I really appreciate it. And yeah, your motherly instinct kicks in, right? I mean, you have an instinct that us men don't really have. We may have children, but we're not going to be in tune with that EQ that you guys have, that emotional rhythm that you guys get, the intuitive sense. And so, yeah, this mask stuff is way deeper. It's way deeper than just, cover up your pie hole, put on a face diaper because you might spread something airborne, which is 1,000 times tinier than the actual fibers in the mask. So it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. So Tabitha, thank you so much for your contribution. I really, really appreciate it. And God bless you and your family. I hope everything is well, and I hope you guys only prosper in a multitude of ways, and maybe that is adding on to the family. I don't know. I don't know what your guys' plans are, but God bless you all. And thank you very much for the support. Corey donates a super chat, and he says, thank you so much, DPH, for all your streams. Ever since I found you, I've been binge watching / listening to most of the streams. They've been really helping me get closer to God and orthodoxy. I pray for the channel and you. Keep up God's work. God bless. Well, thank you so much, Corey, for the super chat and for the support. And glory be to God. If I'm able to come on here and say insightful things, I usually pray too that I bring people closer to God, and I'm very scared to move anybody away from him, especially in the times that we are in the world right now. So I ask that these be given to the Lord and that he can use these in any way. And so if they are having any sort of ripple effect out in the world, I am glorifying him and giving thanks to him. It's not me. So thank you guys so much for the super chats. And again, thank you very, very much, Corey. I'll refresh it real quick here. And so here's Corey. He donated and said, thank you so much, DPH, for all your streams. Ever since I found you, I've been binge watching and listening to most of your streams. Well, great. I hope you haven't got annoyed yet. Maybe my voice can get a little bit irritating. I don't know. I have to live with myself, and I get irritated a little bit sometimes. So hopefully you aren't. They've really been helping me get closer to God and orthodoxy. Well, amen to that. I pray for the channel, and you keep up God's work. Well, thank you so very much, Corey. I really, really appreciate it, brother. And God bless you, and God bless your journey, man. God bless your journey. Next super chat comes from Cal Chichesta. And he has a thoughts on cannabis as an alternative to big pharma medicines, treatment for PTSD and other diagnoses. Also, God bless David. I enjoy your content. Well, thank you very much. Here, I will refresh this as well. Thank you very much, Cal Chichesta, for your support. So thought on cannabis as an alternative to big pharma medicines, treatment for PTSD and other diagnoses. Well, I am a big supporter of CBD. As you guys know, I have a long history with psychedelic substances and drugs, intoxication, inebriation, which is still a bit of a pleasureful passion I have to be careful with. Now, I've been able to get my cannabis use pretty well under wraps. It's still a temptation. So I tend to do it not for any specific medicinal purposes. It's more for a recreational, passionate pleasure of getting high, smoking weed. And so that's something that I've struggled with in my journey into orthodoxy, though I'm much, 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 much better than I ever was before. So this is something that I would take to your spiritual fathers. So Cal Chichesta, I don't know if you're Orthodox or not. I hope that you are. If you're not, then if you're not, go to an Orthodox church, go to a liturgy, go to a Vesper service, and then talk to a priest afterwards. Now, if it's a legitimate medicinal purpose, there might be ways around some of the inebriation theology, right? So Christianity takes on what's called a Stoic sobriety virtue, that it's a virtue to stay sober. So smoking cannabis that has low THC, high CBD might be an alternative to stay more in line with the theology in the church. Again, but I'm not a priest. I'm not a monk. I'm not a spiritual father. I'm just a YouTuber. I'm a guy who reads books. So I have a passionate problem with the use of cannabis, generally speaking. Now, like I said, I've been able to cut that out, but it's still a temptation. It's still always going to be a temptation, probably for a while. I don't have any particular medicinal purpose for it. I would tell you, talk to a priest, and see if you can get a legitimate response based on a legitimate medical problem that you have. I think that would be the best way to go. So the sobriety is the big no-no for breaking the sobriety is a big no-no, generally speaking, for the cannabis. But I know CBD is totally legit. CBD definitely works, and you can definitely do that if you'd like. Truth Eli throws in, but anyways, thank you very much, Cal Chichesta. I hope that helps. I know I kind of danced around that answer, just because I would assume the church has a place for people using those substances for medical purposes, especially against big pharma. But I don't. I don't have a direct answer. I know that I've been advised not to engage in it, so that's what I'm trying to do. But I would say talk to somebody about it. Truth Eli donates a super chat of $5. Thank you very, very much, Truth Eli. He says, great work as usual, brother. God blessed. Well, thank you very much, Truth Eli. I really appreciate your contribution. Thank you for everything. And I'm glad that you enjoyed the stream. Hopefully you guys got something out of it. So thank you very much, Truth Eli, for the super chat and the support. I greatly appreciate it. God bless you and yours, brother. Black Ortho Acolyte throws in a super chat and says, have you heard of the Burning Bush Brotherhood? If so, what are your thoughts on their message? Enjoyed the show, brother. I actually have the Burning Bush Brotherhood opened up on... I saw Brother Augustine posted a link to the Burning Bush Brotherhood. I haven't read it yet. I actually do not know what it is. All I see is to our beloved hierarchs, brother concelebrants, and our faithful flock. This was a open letter to our beloved hierarchs, brother concelebrants, and our faithful flocks from the Burning Bush Brotherhood. I don't know what the Burning Bush Brotherhood is. So I opened up Brother Augustine's link, Michael Witkoff's link that he posted on his YouTube page. Haven't read the article yet, so I am not sure what exactly it is. I will look into it a little bit more and have a better answer for you. I'm sorry, Black Ortho Acolyte. I just don't know exactly what it is. Here, let me refresh your super chat too. I just don't know exactly what it is, so I apologize about that. But anyways, thank you very, very much, brother, for your support, and thank you for being here. And guys, if you've just joined, please smash that like before you leave. I would greatly appreciate that. Tamara W. super chatted $3 with no message. Well, thank you very much, Tamara. God bless you. I greatly appreciate your super chat. I greatly appreciate your super chat. So, looks like some of the guys, looks like John Anon says Burning Bush Brotherhood is based. Okay. But yeah, I need to look a little bit more into it. So a little bit more into it. But anyways, that looks to be all the super chats. I don't see any more super chats or anything directly referencing my name in the chat. So I'm going to hop off here. But guys, if you are interested, again, we're doing a book club August 17th on the life of St. Maximus the Confessor. Join our Logos book club with the link posted right there. Also, if you'd like to have access to exclusive video content, if you'd like to aid in this production of the YouTube channel of what I'm trying to build here, become a website member, please. If you just want to donate or help out $5 a month, a great way to do that is just become a website member. I give you value. I'm always posting videos in that video library. You can check out my Montanica speech. You can check out my Trad Forum speech. You can check out, I think, 20, 30 other videos that I've already made. And I'm continuing to add to that video library. And then a $5 a month is a great way to help me out. As long as you're able. I'm not trying to bend anybody's arm behind their back. But if you're able to, I really, really appreciate it. And also, if anybody is interested in setting up a one-on-one session, if you'd like to talk about theology, if you'd like to talk about philosophy or whatever it be, you can set up a one-on-one session with this link right here, again, over at the website. So thank you all very, very much. I greatly, greatly appreciate all the support. I always do. Thank you guys so much for being here. Please smash that like. Share the stream. If you know anybody who may find it useful to hear this analysis on masks, religion, tribal settings, and initiation processes, please let them know. Let them know about this stream. Share it. Maybe share the YouTube channel. So I would greatly, greatly appreciate that. But anyways, guys, thank you so very much for all the support, and I am going to hop off here. So until next time, as always, God bless.